This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi, it's Marty from the Accelerator team, and I'm here this week with Alasdair Ross, who's the Executive Director of BNI Northumbria.
Yes, hello Marty.
Hi there, and we're going to talk about networking.
Yes, well, it's something we should do a lot of, and I don't think we really do enough, and everybody jumps on the whole social networking.
Yeah.
Well, when I was growing up, social networking meant that I was getting glasses of wine and cheese at my mother's cheese and wine she was running, those sorts of things. Yeah. So, but it's actually about how you interact with people and how you talk, and I think, the stuff that we talk about is really important. So, yes, I'm from BNI, but I still kind of cringe sometimes when people meet before the breakfast meeting or the mid-morning meetings, and they're talking about the football from last night.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen this person for a week or so. I want to find out what they're doing in business, because that's the focus in business. And whether it's BNI or the Chamber or some other networking organisation,
office opening or factory opening,
we need to get better at the networking elements. So there's some things to think about that we could do that would help us. So whenever I'm going to an event, let's say it's a seminar, like an event on a day where there's maybe speakers and stuff like that, from a business club or something like that, but that's going on. Normally you can get access to a delegates list or have an idea of who's going to be there.
You certainly ask.
Yeah. Coming to a BNI meeting, you can find out who the members are. You might not know who the visitors are coming along, but you certainly know who the members are, because you can find those on the website. The same with the Chambers of Commerce or Darlington Professionals is one of the ones that I go to. You kind of know who's coming. So the chances of you being able to, just come back a fraction. The purpose of doing this is to get business.
I was going to say, I think you've jumped a bit. Let's rewind. Why network?
Okay.
It's either to pick up work or find new suppliers or JVs, joint ventures.
Or just grow your network.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you find then a lot of people network without a reason?
Absolutely.
They haven't they've got no objective from why they're going.
They go along for a cup of coffee and a sausage roll.
Which felt like where you were going there.
I jumped apologies, I did jump a little bit ahead.
That's okay.
And then I realised that I hadn't really thought about why we're doing it.
You were going to explain why they get it, but you hadn't explained the purpose.
So when I go to most events, I go with some idea of what it is. Now, if I'm going to an event where there's somebody speaking, then I'm going primarily to listen to that speaker.
You're not going there to hoover up work necessarily.
No, but if I get an opportunity to meet somebody who's not in my network, and it's always great to catch up with mates, but if they're my friends from work, why would I spend my time talking to them? I'm going to see them tomorrow at work anyway.
Well, you'll see them again.
The person I'm talking to, I might not meet again unless we have a connection. Yeah. So I like people. It's the way I am. I love building relationships. I love hearing about people and what they're about. I love to find out about their businesses, because I'm just hungry for knowledge. I'm learning all the time, and it enriches me as a person, because I can have different conversations then with different people.
Yeah.
I was talking to Marty the other day about tax audits or something like that. So it gives me a different level of knowledge that I didn't have before, because every time you can't unlearn it once it's in your head. So I'm just like that richness of life. So I love getting out there and meeting people generally. And so having done that, when I'm going to a networking event of some sort, I want to have a degree of purpose. And a friend of mine called Andy Bounds once talked about the big fish, the little fish, and the Wellington boot. Okay. Have you not? Right. Okay. So the big fish are there's always one or two really big fish at these events, especially if it's a well marketed event, and they're the people you want to get a hold of, right? And then there's the little fish, so they're the people that can introduce you or feed you to them and sort yourself around. And sometimes they're useful contacts and they might turn into something worthwhile in the future. It tends to be the people you just connect with ad hoc on LinkedIn and things like that. They're the little fish. You haven't quite got to the big fish, but they're a route to market. And then the old Wellington boot is the the chap who follows you around, you know, and is talking to you and dominating your conversation.
So
and what you want to do with your Wellington boot is throw it in the
fishing analogy, isn't it? Right? Because big fish are slow, and I don't know where you're going, but if you're casting a rod, you want to catch a big fish.
Yeah.
The little fish can sometimes be useful, good practice. But the boot. Well, it's a boot.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just an analogy to kind of make you think about how, when you're going to these events.
We all know the Wellington boot as well. Everyone you can. I know who that is. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they're not nice people, so don't think that.
Or valuable contacts in any. Yeah,
they're just not the person you need to be speaking to.
If you spend an afternoon fishing, you'll get annoyed if you keep pulling up boots.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So you need to go with some degree of purpose. Now, if that purpose is just I'm going for a cup of coffee and a sausage roll, then fair enough. But
if you're just hungry,
yeah. But and there are people who do that at the free events, right? Just so they don't buy food, they just eat out.
It's cheaper to go to an event,
So I want to go with a sense of purpose. So the first thing I would do is I would start with the delegates list and see who are coming. Now, that might not be the specific person, because you might not know that person or know that that's the person you want to speak to, but there might be in a particular category. So it might be, I want to be speaking to accountants, for example, or solicitors. Yeah. So I'm going to make it my business to try and engineer a conversation. That sounds a bit brutal, but it's not. It's just about, I want to get myself in front of these people.
It's about being efficient, surely, and effective.
To see if there's any likelihood of a relationship. Now, I'm maybe a little bit old school, but I don't think people buy product.
Yeah, well, there's also something which is inevitably going to come up here, and there's a difference. People might have heard this, but the idea of farming and hunting.
Yes.
Now, I'm quite old. You might have been going to go on to this, but let's say I can identify the big fish in the room, I've got everything perfect. I can't just walk up to that person and say, do you want to buy some stuff?
No, I have to build a relationship.
It's just not going to happen, is it?
And they have to, so we use an expression, it's something in BNI, but it's been used elsewhere, which is know, like and trust. I have to get to know that person, I have to like that person, and I have to trust them. And I always joke that it's not about whether or not you've still got your watch on your wrist after you've spoken to them. What I mean by trusting them is, if I ask them to do something for me, will they do what they say they're going to do? So can I trust them to do it?
You get that same point with them as well, don't
Absolutely, it's reciprocal.
If you want something from them.
Yeah, because they won't refer you or pass you business or do business with you. You know, if you go to a roofer and you say, can you come and fix my roof, and you have no idea who they are, you might end up without any tiles on your roof. Right, and it rains. So, you know, you've got to know that people are going to do what they do. And I think, you know, we're in a very fast-paced world, and we've got lots of online purchases and things like that. But the advantage of an online purchase, if I don't like it, I send it back.
Yeah.
I'd start buying something a little bit more.
Because there's an interesting angle here as well, is it depends what you sell. A big fish might go, well, you're a florist, I need a bouquet.
Yeah.
You can do one now, there's a tenner. The worst that happens is their flowers die in a week instead of 2 weeks. No, but who cares? They'll just go, it doesn't matter. But they're not going to swap their IT over to you or their accounts.
Or invest their pension with you unless they know you.
Absolutely.
So yes, there is a level in there.
Yeah.
So attending a networking event with a sense of purpose means that you're going to find people that you either align with and can collaborate with. We need to do much more collaboration instead of fighting with people. There's plenty of pie out there for us all. So we're looking for people we can either collaborate with or who are going to be useful to us, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's going to eliminate probably, 2/3 of the people that attend one of these events. Right now,
on the event, half the people in the room probably do exactly the same as you anyway.
Yeah, and they're all looking for the connections.
You've only got to be slightly better at networking to win there, haven't you?
Yes, right.
Because most people are quite poor.
Because if you go somewhere, right, BNI is one person per profession, but you go to other networking events, there'll be 5 solicitors or 4 plumbers, and it's like
and they're all chasing that big.
They're all chasing. So it's always a challenge in that respect. So the first thing I do is I always start with that, and I start looking. Now, even with a list and a tick box that I want to speak to these people, you might not get to them. So then it's about how you might follow up with them and maybe contact them afterwards. But
can we pause there then? Okay. Let's assume they go, I'm not giving you a list. I've got a great way. So normally if you turn up in a room and obviously you can't get a list and you don't know who's in the room, there will always be someone you know. I always go, who should I be speaking to?
Yes, absolutely.
Just doing a cheeky little, who should I be speaking to?
Because everybody has connections. So we talk about this.
The little fish, you go, well,
So in our
if it's a big fish who you already know, like, but I want to meet other big fish, who should I be speaking to? Oh, I'll introduce you to Dave. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Love that. Thanks.
So when I talk about this, about who you know, right, we have a sphere of influence that there are sphere of influence at the moment, and it's made up of lots of things: school and college and maybe work and the gym and stuff like that. And that's somewhere between about 100 to 150. They're people with whom we have a very strong connection, that we know well enough, we understand what they do, they're fresh in our mind all the time. That changes, right? The next circle is about 1,000 people, and there are 1,000 people that we know well enough to make an introduction to. And then we've got, in some cases, tens of thousands of connections. Yeah. So if we're speaking to somebody we know within our 1,000 connection, and certainly with our 150, they will turn around and point us in the right direction. So that eliminates that. Yeah. Now, one of the other things that I do in networking events, and this sounds, again, I liked your word efficient, okay? Some people say that's a bit brutal, a bit callous, but it's not. It's about being efficient.
You've only got so much time.
Yeah.
You should eliminate inefficient practices. Yeah. And if sausage rolls take 2 hours to feed you, you should just buy a sausage roll and get the 2 hours back.
Yeah.
You know.
So one of the ways I do it, we still have business cards, right? I know COVID put paid to a lot of that, and people have all these electronic things and QR codes and stuff, but I still like a good business card, and so if somebody's got a business card, I never just thrust it on somebody. But again, the old Wellington boot, he comes around and all he's doing is pushing his business card and sell. I'm not going to do business with someone like that, because they're not trying to get to know me. They're a hunter. They're just looking to sell.
Just their selfish.
And they might pick up 1 or 2 little bits of business, but they're not going to get any long-term effective. So when I get handed a business card, and I will always be very respectful about it, and I'll say, would you mind if I write on this? Okay. Never do that with the Japanese, by the way. It's very disrespectful. So you always have to be very respectful in the way you deal with that. So you have to understand cultures as well, depending where you're networking. So I do some stuff on a global level as well. So you have to think about how you interact with those people as well. Yeah. But anyway, so I get a business card, and I might write down on the back, met at the Northeast Chamber of Commerce networking event on such and such. And I know that. Now, if they are a little fish, I will put them in my right-hand pocket.
Well, you're giving it away now, mind you, Ali.
If they're a big fish, I'll put it in my left-hand pocket. Now,
it's very, because you're not going to write big and little, but you need a simple way that when you get home, you've got.
I can go. They're the ones I need to follow up with immediately. They're the ones that might develop into relationships
I'll
later.
To them, and I'll be respectful of the fact that
Okay. Because the difference is, we were having a conversation about, can I have a cup of coffee? Because the other bit behind the big fish, little fish and Wellington boot is, there's always time for a cup of coffee. Yeah. Right? So I'm not going to do business with somebody the first time I meet them. Very, very rare. Bouquet of flowers is different maybe, or something like that. But normally I want to understand that person can deliver what I've asked. So those people that are the big fish, I would turn around and I would say, it was great to meet you at that event. You need to be following up within 24, no later than 48 hours, or you lost it. Okay, so you need to be efficient. So get them contacted, ask if you can have a cup of coffee to discuss whether or not there's anything you can do with them. Most people, if you've got on all right with them and they've gone, there's a spark there, will at least get you to the cup of coffee. Yeah. That is the point at which you have a chance to genuinely understand that person's business and them understand your business, and that might then turn into an effective referral of some sort. The ones that are the little fish, as I call them, they are, it was great to see you at the meeting, I hope to catch up with you again sometime. Yeah. So that's that touch point, and it takes you more touch points to evolve that relationship. The problem is that people go and they do what's called harvesting business cards. So they go to an event like that. The BNI, we pass a business card box round. They basically take a chunk of business cards. They come back to their office, give it to their secretary. The secretary types it all into a CRM system, and you get an email that comes up and says, Alasdair, it was lovely to meet you at the meeting. And I go, but I wasn't there.
But your card was there.
My card was there, yeah. So you're kind of a little bit frustrating, and they're just
that's a massive credibility.
And that's the problem with the social media type of networking as well, where you're on LinkedIn, where you connect with somebody because they say, I'd like to connect with you, I think there's something we can do, and they immediately send you a list of all their products. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Build a relationship with me. Find out who I am. Find out if I'm somebody that can help you, and vice versa.
It's probably worth going into a couple of different things here. Then we'll come on to, if that's okay, what do you say to the fish? you need, again, if you want to be efficient, you might only get a minute. We'll come on to that in a minute. But before that, no, go on, actually, because it looked like you were just about to jump in there. Go on. What?
Well, the question is, do you know what you're going to say to that person? So I'll give you an example.
If it's about, if I can get in front of that person, I want to say something that will get me the coffee.
Yeah. So I got an opportunity. I actually won a competition and I went to Necker Island.
Ah, yeah.
And so I've met Richard Branson. I actually spent 15 minutes chatting to him in his hot tub.
Awesome.
Long story.
Were you both in the hot tub, or just you, or just him?
Just him, and I was sat on the side because I wasn't in my swimming costume, so that was fine by me. But anyway, that's okay. And I get this all the time. People say, "Oh, you know Richard Branson?" No, I don't know Richard Branson. I've met him. I had 15 minutes chat to him.
He probably, in no disrespect, not remember you because he's probably met thousands of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's pretty good because I've listened to his autobiographies as well. But the question I have when people say, you know, I'd love an introduction to Richard Branson, is always, what are you going to say to him? Let's say you walked in a lift and he's there in the lift. What are you going to say to him?
Yeah.
Yeah? And they go, hello, Richard? No, that's not going to cut the mustard. And do you know what? I'd been chewing myself for 2 days, 3 days, waiting until I thought, oh, I'm going to bump into this guy. What am I going to say to him? I had no idea. And when I actually got the opportunity, and literally everybody else had just cleared out the way, and he said, does anybody want to get in the hot tub and have a conversation with me for 5 minutes? And I said, well, if it's okay, I'll have a conversation with you. And he said, all right, yes, sir. So who are you? And I just went, well, my name's Alasdair, but we have a mutual connection. And it was only in that moment that I was able to work out what it was I was going to say to him. Because what do you say to this guy? He's a multi-billionaire, right? Got a lot more pennies than I have. Yeah. Anyway, so I told him that the mutual connection was a guy called Dr. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, founder and chief visionary officer, and he had just received the accolade for the greatest influencer, leadership influencer from John C. Maxwell. And he literally got that the night before. And I know Ivan Meisner, and he knows me enough that I knew that he'd been on Necker Island 18 months earlier, on Mosquito Island and Necker Island. So he knows Richard. So we were able to then start a conversation. Yeah. Yeah. But it didn't turn into business. Yeah. Richard didn't say, oh, great, you run a HR health and safety company, or you're in BNI, or whatever it is. They're not interested in that. Yeah. Right? But at least I was able to have a meaningful conversation with him for about 15 minutes. Yeah.
Even if it's just relatively small talk, but it was a conversation rather than a...
Well, it wasn't sycophantic because I
like hot tubs.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I love your book. Yep.
Yeah. So that was a really good conversation to have had with him, and then I got a photograph with him later. So
what about if you're trying to, let's say you're in front of the big fish, then what? Because again, you might not get along in their orbit.
Do you know what you're going to say in 30 seconds? And the Americans call it an elevator pitch because it takes about 30 seconds to travel between each floor in the high-rise building. So they say if you jumped into the lift with somebody you want to speak to, you've got 30 seconds. What you're going to say, all right? So you need to work out that if at any time you were going to bump into somebody, how are you going to open up that network conversation? Now, I tend not to be and dump the business and all the things, because you can't say I do all of these things. What I tend to do is just say, oh, hello, it's really nice to meet you, and if it's somebody I'm wanting to connect with, I'm usually asking them about them, right? So what I call the you game, always ask them, what do you do? Or I heard about you doing this, or, how long have you done it? It's much, and if you know who you're looking to connect with, do some research, find out about them. Don't just blunder in there and go, but.
I see that you make lifts and you won that award last year and you're doing a management buyout. Wow, you've got a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Instantly on a good foot.
So you're building rapport, which is the key. And I hate to say it, but walking around with our face in a phone all the time is not a good place. I like conversation. I like having discussions because you get to know people, you get to feel comfortable with them, and that evolves into long-term relationships. And I'm still doing business with people I met 20 years ago because I took the time to do. So if there was a single piece of advice, take the necessary time. Don't just blunder in there and hope you're going to flog some business to somebody, because it's not going to work.
Again, if you're just after a sausage roll, there's more efficient ways.
Yeah.
Because not a label a sausage roll point, but if you're just going somewhere to float around for a couple of hours, you've wasted a couple of hours of, there might be the odd chance,
I can get more done in a couple of hours, not just one of those wasteful.
You should be able to get more value from a couple of hours of targeted, focused work than from a random milling around of a room.
So as I said, if you're going to an event where you're listening to somebody, you have a purpose to go there, but when you're there, that opportunity over the coffee breaks, make them work for you.
Yeah.
Right? Try and find out what people do, and the easiest way to do that is, it's very nice to meet you, my name is Alasdair. Always introduce yourself with your name. It takes barriers down. It's why wearing badges helps with people's names, because that's one of the awkward barriers that we have to people. Hello. The other thing as well, if you bump into somebody that you know but you can't remember their name, just say to them, I'm really sorry, I've forgotten your name. They'll respect you far more for it, instead of trying to and calling them mate and pal. And
last night, so I was at the event last night, and there was a lad there, and I clocked him. I spotted him on the way, and I thought, know him from somewhere. And thought, is it chance? There was two people actually. I've mentioned one of them, but there was another lad as well. I was like, but when you see people out of context, it really can be quite disjointing. So this was a social event, nothing to do with any kind of work in any way. And I said to one of the lads, I says, you have a good time? And he went, yeah. I went, I know you from somewhere, but I just can't place it. And he went, it's no problem whatsoever.
There never is.
No one's ever going to be a friend and go, I cannot believe you. No one's that egotistical, are they, that they think,
no.
How dare you not remember me? I mean, it's a bit embarrassing if it's someone you've spent a lot, like, who you should know, but, if it's someone who's a fleeting acquaintance.
But then again, I meet a lot of people, and I meet them in all different contexts, in and out of their professional careers and what have you. So if it's out of context, that's usually the bit that throws you.
Yeah.
And you
if
can
it's
be
a
sitting,
dentist and they're sitting behind their chair with a drill, you go, well, it's Dave the dentist. If you bump into them at the 18th hole or the 19th hole, I think that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, so don't be shy at doing that either, I think. And that's about, because you come across then as somebody who's confident in your own right. And if they say no, I mean, I had a conversation with somebody who went, I absolutely know you from somewhere. And I said, well, yeah, you really look familiar. And then you start a conversation about where you might have met them.
Yeah.
Do you know what? That's okay as well, Marty.
Of course.
Because you're having a conversation. Yeah. We need to communicate. We were born to communicate. We're the only species on this planet that communicates to the extent we communicate.
Yeah.
Now, other
that we know of.
Well, behave, right? But other species communicate, and very effectively. You only need to look at the Blue Planet stuff to do with orcas and how they're communicating and stuff.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating.
We're not saying there aren't other complex organisms,
but they're not communicating like we are with the way that we can write and speak. And
they haven't got big fish, small fish, and boot analogies about networking, have they? Yeah.
I think there's seals and penguins and things. But anyway,
so we've covered network, and we've talked about face-to-face. Let's not go into the online, but we've talked about events there. What is there a good time and a wrong time to network? If you're at a parent-teachers meeting or you've just watched the nativity,
I do it all the time.
But you've got to get the tone right as well, haven't you? You shouldn't be just selling photocopiers at the nativity.
No, but you see, if you approach your networking, and out of that also comes influencing. Okay, so we talk a lot about leadership and influencing. So every time you have a conversation with somebody, you have an opportunity to influence them, positively or negatively, but you have an opportunity. I approach all my networking and all my interactions with people as an opportunity to build a relationship. And I think if you were saying, what's it all about? It's about getting to know the other person. And I might have a conversation with them, and then this happens all the time. We meet people on holiday and stuff like that. We get on great with them for 2 days, never see them again ever. Yeah. There's 8 billion people on the planet, so we might never bump into them. That doesn't mean that we haven't had a shared experience that's been useful and learned something back and forth. So for me, it's all about building relationships. It's too hard to be negative in my life. I like people, and I've been all over the world. I've been very fortunate. I've been very well travelled and met a lot of cultures, and the majority of people are really nice.
It's interesting as well, because you said you almost answered a different question, but arguably you answered the question the right way. I said there's a time and place for these things, and it was interesting because what you answered is approach any relationship like you want to build a relationship.
Yes.
That isn't to sell a photocopier, it's to get to know the person, isn't it? So actually the relationship building is the primary point.
Whether business comes out of it or not is an after effect.
Yeah.
Because if I'm selling to somebody because I'm sitting doing a pitch in their room and I've got my PowerPoint slide or I've got my product, then I'm in a different context and environment. I am there.
If you've been invited into technical work, they're expecting a pitch.
Yeah.
Any other environment, relationship building is all you can do, isn't it?
But if you bump into that person a year earlier and you've got on really well and you've had maybe a bit of a laugh or passed an anecdote or something, and then you come in to do that pitch to them and they go, I know you from somewhere.
You're the guy who was trying to rent the same bike as me on the top of snow, don't you?
That's right.
That's right.
And now you've instantly got rapport, and once you've got rapport, people, all these barriers that we build in our head, not subconsciously, right? But we put barriers up, like I don't know that person's name, so I'm not going to speak to them, and this reticence, this anxiety of speaking to people, so get a badge up.
They're frowning.
And what does that mean?
Smile if you're networking, please. Just take
although some people just have frowny faces, they can't help it. And when they smile, they frown. But anyway,
that's a frown face.
A resting frown face.
Just in literally the last 60 seconds, then Alasdair, what's the one thing people just keep getting wrong on networking? You might have already mentioned it, but
they go in and sell.
Yeah.
They meet somebody for the first time and they start selling.
Hunting instead of forming relationships.
Yeah, they just think it's all about the transaction.
Because one thing we can almost guarantee is if you're going to a networking event, you're not going there to buy a photocopier, are you? So why would anyone expect to be able to sell a photocopier or whatever it is you're selling? You're really unlikely to find the one guy who said, well, I hope I find a photocopier salesman here. That's not why people go to events.
This is nothing against photocopier salesmen, by the way, just to clarify.
I've met a few though.
But yeah, it is about that. It's go and meet people for the sake of meeting people, because you just don't know what that connection and where that's going to lead you.
But also target the people you meet.
Yes, if you can do that and narrow it down, then do so. Yeah.
Alasdair, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on
thank you for the opportunity.
Business and networking. So hopefully that's helped people out there, and as always we look forward to your comments.